Welcome to Train Freediving. In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 pool exercises that are going to help you prepare for depth. One of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of deep divers making is completely neglecting the pool as a useful training environment for their depth training. Whether you're diving depth all year round or only have small bits of the year where you're able to dive deep, I believe that not using the pool is a big mistake. The reason that I believe pool is so valuable for deep divers is because there are certain valuable things that we just simply can't do in depth. In depth, we cannot train with a high volume, so we can't do a lot of meters per session, and we cannot manipulate recovery times. So when we're deep diving, we're always going to be limited by nitrogen accumulation and the risk of decompression sickness. Because of this, we need to obey minimum recovery times, which are usually in the 3, 4, 5, or 6+ minutes between dives, and realistically speaking, anything more than 200 meters of depth or 400 total meters covered per training session is going to start to put you at risk of accumulating too much nitrogen, too much fatigue, and potentially decompression sickness in the long run. Right now, I want to share with you 3 exercises that I believe are the most valuable for deep diving. Things that have very direct physical or mental crossover to the type of diving that we want to do in depth. Exercise 1. This is what I call basic repetitions. And all you're going to do in the pool is repeat either 50-meter dynamics over and over again, or if you're not capable of sustaining 50 meters for the volume that I'm going to recommend, you can do it on repetitions of 25 meters. And then as your ability and fitness in the pool increases, you'll be able to transition to doing this exercise on 50s. Now, the point of this exercise is, again, just to accumulate volume. I consider it jogging for freediving. All you're doing is holding your breath for many, many meters in a session. Now, this exercise isn't a CO2 table, it isn't an O2 table, so it's important that you have a full recovery between each and every dive. And full recovery is going to depend on the diver. Some divers can fully recover between 50s in 30 seconds, and other divers might need 2.5 minutes to fully recover between 50s. The point is, take a full recovery and do the repetitions, and by doing this, you'll improve your apnea endurance, your recovery capacity, and then that's going to translate to you being able to do more repetitions of 50 in the pool, and therefore more good quality dives in depth. Now, I recommend that you should start with at least 500 total meters covered in a session. Again, whether this is split between all 50s, all 25s, or some 50s and some 25s, depending on your level. Then as your endurance improves, you can start to bump this up towards 1,000 total meters per session. Exercise 2. This exercise is going to be performed as a set of breath holds. And the breath holds are going to go 50 meters dynamic at a normal dynamic speed, plus 2 to 4 times 25 meters at around 0.5 meters per second faster than your normal dynamic speed. So the first 50 is done with a nice relaxed dynamic technique, and then the repetitions of 25 is going to be done more with a powerful, fast technique that's more similar to what you'd experience on the ascent from your deep dive. You're going to take a fixed number of recovery breaths between each lap, so you'll do 50 meters, take X amount of recovery breaths, and then after each 25, you're going to take the same amount of recovery breaths. Now, normally I recommend to people to start with 8 recovery breaths, and then as you progress, as you're able to do 50 plus 2, 3, or even 4 times 25 with no contractions, then you can reduce the recovery breaths by 1. Work on it until you can do the entire set with no contractions, and then again, reduce the recovery breaths by 1. Now, this exercise in particular is going to have 2 different values. The first value is going to be more of a physical muscular conditioning. by accumulating a little bit of lactic acid, a little bit of CO2 during the 50 meters, and then swimming the 25s quickly, you're going to work on that strong, powerful technique that you need to apply to get back up from your deep dive. And you're also going to work on your ability to focus. So each set, the 50 plus 2 to 4 times 25, is going to take anywhere between 1 minute and 30 to 3 minutes to complete. And your job is to stay 100% focused during the entire set. Again, taking advantage of the fact that we can do a lot more volume of training in the pool versus in depth, you can do this set of breath holds for 3 to 5 sets in a training session. Exercise 3. Now, a lot of people ask me what I do for mental training, because I don't really talk about doing meditation, yoga, visualization, or anything like that. And this exercise is, in my opinion, one of the best mental exercises for deep divers. And it's going to be a static plus a dynamic. So essentially all you're going to do is you're going to hold your breath for a predetermined amount of time. And then when you reach that time in static, your buddy is going to either tap you on the shoulder or make a noise on the side of the pool, and that's going to signal you to go. And then you're going to swim for a predetermined number of meters. Now, the reason I believe that this is such a valuable mental exercise for deep divers is because a lot of times divers will be able to hold their breath for 1 minute, 2 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes without contractions on a static. However, during a static plus dynamic, they might get their contractions earlier. And for me, this is a sign that psychologically you're impatient and you're waiting for your buddy to tell you to go. And this is going to simulate being impatient or waiting for the ball or the bottom plate to arrive in your hand. I always suggest that people, the first time they do this, start with a 15-second static plus a 50-meter dynamic, and then they can make adjustments from there. Ideally, what you want to do is hold your breath for the duration of your descent. So for example, if you're training for 40 meters, you should be doing a 40-second static plus a 50-meter dynamic. If you're training for more than 50 meters, let's say 70 meters, ideally you work up to being able to do a 70-second static plus a 70-meter dynamic. In this exercise, we're replicating up to the total dive time that we'd have on a personal best dive in depth. However, because it's the pool, because there's no nitrogen, we'll be capable of doing 3 to 5 repetitions of this exercise in a session. So if you're a 50-meter diver, you can do 50-second static plus 50 meters 5 times with plenty of recovery. Again, it's not a CO2 drill, it's not an O2 drill, it's a focus and relaxation drill. So after 1 repetition, make sure to take 3, 4, or even 5 minutes before your next repetition to make sure that they're all comfortable and all good quality. In my opinion, any pool training is going to value your deep diving. If you set a new personal best, if you just spend lots of time in the pool, or even doing swimming, at some level is going to help your deep diving. And I wouldn't say that the 3 exercises I shared with you today are the only things you should be doing in the pool. However, in my opinion, working on these ones as a primary focus is really going to help your deep diving. They all have characteristics that are either untrainable in depth. So with the basic repetitions, exercise number 1, we cannot do such a high volume, and we cannot work on our apnea endurance in the same way. And then with the other 2 exercises, they have a physical component where you're working on the same powerful technique that you might use from a deep dive, a focus component where you have to switch in and out between your dives for an extended period of time, or they have a relaxation component where you're learning to just completely shut off and relax before hitting the bottom, turning around, and coming back up. So if you are a deep diver, and whether you're only able to deep dive for half the year because of the winter, if you're only able to deep dive when you get to go on holiday, or if you can deep dive all year round, I still strongly suggest that you use the pool to some capacity, to some degree, to help prepare yourself better or to help maintain your fitness in a better way for your deep diving. Give them a try, see how you feel, see which ones are easy for you, which ones are hard for you, which ones maybe you're struggling with more than others, work on them, improve them, and I can almost guarantee that if you get better at these exercises, when you go to deep diving, you're going to have better quality dives, better recovery between dives and between sessions, less urge to breathe, and an overall easier time progressing.